Hey, in this video, I'm talking about how to do intermittent fasting during the menstrual cycle. So for a female, menstrual cycle is this 28-day cycle. The first 14 days, right? Day one is the first day of bleeding when the uterine lining breaks down and there's blood. That's day one up to day 14, which is ovulation. That first 2 weeks we call the follicular phase, right? We're building the egg follicle for fertilization. And then the latter half, the day 15 to day 28, is called the luteal phase. And so we really need to consider where we're at on that menstrual cycle when it comes to applying feast-famine principles. And that's because fasting, as beneficial as it is, it's a stressor on the body. We call it a hormetic stressor. A hormetic stressor is a stressor on the body, but it's a stressor that our ancestors would have encountered. And therefore, our body knows how to adapt to it. And it actually makes our body stronger and more stress resilient as long as we can handle the stress, as long as we can adapt to it. And so if we're under too much stress, even if they're hormetic stressors, like exercise, for example, would be a hormetic stressor, high heat or high cold, our ancestors would have been exposed to temperature changes, but that's still a stressor on the body. Times of famine, where we don't have enough food, that's a stressor. As long as we're able to adapt to it, it's beneficial. But if we stack too many of these stressors on our body, and we're already in a state where our body's overwhelmed with stress, then it can have a negative effect. And so this is why we want to be careful with fasting when it comes to a menstrual cycle. So day 1 to 10, when you first start your menstrual cycle and you're bleeding, that's actually one of the best times to do intermittent fasting and a low-carb diet. You actually want to tell your body you're in a season of famine. The reason for that is because that will help bring down inflammation in your body. When you're in a time of famine, you're not eating as much, your insulin levels are lower, your body undergoes autophagy where it breaks down old damaged proteins, intracellular proteins, old damaged mitochondria, intracellular organelles, and starts to repair those. Your body goes into a cleansing and healing phase. And this actually will reduce any sort of symptoms that you may experience when you're undergoing your menstrual cycle. And so day 1 to 10, great time to go low carb. Great time if you want to do a 3-day fast or a 5-day fast. Wonderful time to do that. Eat lower carbs, high protein, high healthy fats when you are eating, and you can do really great with that. Once day 11 hits, now you really need to set up for ovulation. So at day 11, we go into a feasting phase, and you're going to do this for roughly 5 days, where you're going to eat more calories and more carbohydrates. Now, ideally, getting your carbohydrates from good sources. That's going to be things like fresh fruit or frozen fruit. And it's going to be things like sweet potatoes or other root vegetables, beets, carrots, things like that. And perhaps some fermented grains like sourdough bread if you want to have some of that as well and your body's able to tolerate it. So having more carbohydrates, ideally from whole food, real sources, is more than welcome during day 11 through 15. Eating more calories in general is going to be beneficial. Still keep your protein up, still consuming a lot of protein. It's just going to help you with better blood sugar stability and help you feel better. What that does is that reduces cortisol. When you're eating lots of food like that, your cortisol goes down, and therefore cortisol will inhibit progesterone release. And so we get lower cortisol, we get more hormone production, progesterone, estrogen production, which is what we need for good ovulation. So we go through that process for 5 days. Then day 16, we go back into fasting. We want to tell the body we're in a time of famine. Now bring down inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity, improve fat burning during that cycle. So from day 16 to day 22, basically, day 21, we are low carb. We are high protein, low carb, healthy fats, right? And then once we get to the last week before the menstrual cycle starts, okay, that's when we're going back on a feasting cycle. So more carbohydrates, more calories in general, longer eating window. So for example, during the famine, the time of famine, you might eat your meals in like let's say a 6 to 8 hour eating window. So you might eat from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. And that tight eating window allows your body a lot of time to burn fat, a lot of time to clean itself up, to undergo autophagy, to detox, to heal, and that's wonderful. But during the feasting cycle, the periods of feasting, we want to have a longer eating window, like a 12-hour eating window. So you start eating at, let's say, 7 or 8 a.m., and then you can finish eating at 7 or 8 p.m. I always recommend giving yourself at least 12 hours overnight from your last meal to your first meal, so your body can really undergo a full detoxification cycle. And if you're eating a lot of protein, it should be pretty easy to do that. So that shouldn't be an issue, even if it is, the week before your menstrual cycle when you normally have cravings. As long as you're consuming enough protein, I recommend consuming at least 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal. And that will create that blood sugar stability, get the amino acids your body needs to really heal and function well, and you won't have the cravings to quite such an extent. And so, but make sure during that last week when you're in the feasting cycle, you're consuming a lot of these good healthy fruits, root vegetables, right? Nutrient-dense carbohydrate sources. That's what you're looking for to really nourish your body properly during that cycle. And so this is really a feast-famine cycle built around a healthy menstrual cycle, and that's how you do it. Now, if you're in menopause, you don't have to follow these rules. You can do something like a 5-1-1, 5 days where you're low carb, high protein, high healthy fats, and you're doing intermittent fasting with a tight eating window. And then 1 day where you have a larger eating window, so you're kind of cycling out of ketosis in a sense, and you're consuming more of these healthy carbohydrates. And then 1 day where you do a longer fast, maybe a 20 to 24-hour fast, so you're really getting more autophagy, more fat burning during that period of time. So that is if you don't have a menstrual cycle. If you do have a menstrual cycle, stick with the program that I just outlined, and I know you're gonna get a lot of value, and this is gonna really help you be able to follow an intermittent fasting lifestyle. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my channel, browse the various videos that I've done on similar topics, and also make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button. That way you get notified whenever I put up a new video training. Thanks so much for being a part of our community here, and I really hope you enjoy the videos that we're putting out on a regular basis. Be blessed.